Today we'll be talking about the nature of operations management systems in organizations. In order to better understand operations management systems, we'll talk about how operations management can provide a model for understanding and improving organizational processes and outcomes, talking about why understanding of these processes is necessary for improving organizations, and finally, ways to improve the POM system itself. The POM system provides a framework for understanding performance processes that take place in every type of organization. Managers can use this system to build a more efficient and competitive organization. A poorly designed system can lead to your organization's ruin. However, using a well-designed system, you can build an organization that lasts. And your understanding and use of the POM system will raise your organization's performance to world-class levels. We'll be talking about how using a systems approach provides a model for understanding and improving organizational processes. The main throughput in a systems model gives a better understanding of the major transformational component of production and operations management systems. In this system, the first step in analyzing your organization is to examine the inputs into your POM process. These inputs can be physical goods, as in manufacturing situations. They can also be more human resource based, as are more common in service-oriented organizations. Whatever the inputs your organization used, they will have to be transformed in order to meet your competitive goals. This transformation system, again, can be of a more physical nature, changing raw goods such as iron ore into a useful product such as utensils, knives, girders, or they can be transforming more intangible items such as data into information and knowledge. Each transformation system will have to be different in order to maximize the transformation of the input into the outputs that your organization will be producing. And these outputs ultimately will have to delight your customer. As the world becomes flatter, as competition becomes increasingly international, simple goodness, defect-free goods are the minimum. Now goods are having to be such that they give the customer something extra, something that cannot be found in the competition. In this system, the feedback process helps keep it functioning as desired and needed. At a minimum, there must be an internal feedback process. A feedback process where the outputs are checked and compared against internal specifications, where the transformation system is checked for efficiency, and where inputs are changed to better maximize the transformation and output. And as you can see from the graphic, the feedback process creates a loop that helps improve the entire process. However, better systems will give stakeholders a voice in the process. These stakeholders can be owners of the organization, such as shareholders. They can also be citizens who live in and around the facility that's making the transformation. They can be customers. And the customers should also be afforded an extra level of input into the feedback process. Measuring the voice of customer is necessary for continued improvement in the transformational process. It provides the organization with input not just of how well the transformation system is working today, but how it can be improved to be more competitive for tomorrow. You'll also need to be aware of the environment's effect on systems performance. Included in this environment, this business environment, are rivals who can compete with you for customers, also for input, and for quality employees. They can also change the entire transformation system by developing new ways of producing goods, and also by coming up with new uses for those goods, and even completely new product lines that you will have to decide how to match. The government sector also will influence organizations and set boundaries. These boundaries come in the shape of regulations, laws, taxes, and other governmental influences. Also, potential customers and suppliers also affect the system. Suppliers will set what inputs are available. Potential customers, what type of outputs you'll produce today, tomorrow, and for the long term. Understanding how your organization system functions is necessary to optimize the system. One important aspect of the systems framework is that all parts of the system are interconnected. In understanding one part, each part is necessary for understanding the whole. But beyond that, you also have to understand how those pieces work together, both linearly and non-linearly. A non-connected part does not contribute to the system and should be removed. Discovering these non-useful parts can help maximize overall organizational efficiency, since you can reduce the amount of resources spent on non-functional areas. Subsystems of a system can be loosely or tightly coupled. Subsystems are considered to be loosely coupled when changes in a subsystem has minimal or slow acting changes on the other parts of the system. Tightly coupled subsystems, a small change in that subsystem will cause high levels of change in the other parts of the system, and those changes will come about very quickly. You must be aware of each subsystem, its place in the system, and the system as a whole. It's not enough to simply understand one small part of the overall organizational system. You have to understand how all of it works together. Your system is going to be limited by its least efficient subsystem. All systems have at least one limitation, or they would have infinite throughput. If a system has too many limitations, it will become chaotic and collapse. At some point, there's a diminishing return to improving subsystems, and the whole system must be redesigned. While you can remove limitations from various parts of the subsystem, eventually the ceiling will be reached on this increased efficiency. At that point, you have to make strategic decisions about how to redesign the entire system. Changes to one part of the system will change all other parts. The more tightly coupled the subsystem, the greater effect a change in it will have on the system. boundaries are always fuzzy. Changes make them even fuzzier, which can make it more difficult when you're putting changes in place to a system to determine how each subsystem interacts with the others. You must always be prepared to deal with the law of unintended consequences. While you would like to be able to anticipate all changes to the system, realistically, that's not going to be possible. Instead, you have to build in flexibility and monitoring to the change process so that you can deal with the changes as they arise. Finally, we're going to discuss a few of the many tested ways to improve the POM system. Total quality management is a very well proven method of operations management improvement. Many methods and tools exist to implement TQM, and this variety of methods is one of the very strong benefits and advantages of using a TQM system. However, TQM systems tend to work best in manufacturing situations. TQM was originally developed in manufacturing situations, and while many of the ideas behind TQM and methods in TQM have been translated over to service situations, these translations have not been as effective as the use of TQM tools in the manufacturing systems they were originally developed in. As such, since most of the United States economy is based on service, TQM has a somewhat limited value for today's economy. However, the adaptations are still useful for service situations and should be considered for any type of organization. An emerging method of POM improvement is Six Sigma. The use of Six Sigma has been rapidly increasing over the past few years, and also Six Sigma is more adaptable to service industries in TQM, therefore making it much more attractive to many types of organizations in today's economy. Unfortunately, Six Sigma tends to have a steeper learning curve than TQM due to its comparative newness. While there are many methods for training people in TQM, and those training methods have been adapted to many types of organization, Six Sigma is still developing its knowledge base on training methods. Also, in your improvement of the operations management system, you must always be sure to include the voice of the customer. How do you do that? Well, one way is customer satisfaction surveys. They provide a post-hoc feedback loop. Once you've produced your goods and services, you can find out how satisfied, how delighted the customer is with your output. But unfortunately, satisfaction surveys are only an after-the-fact method. After you've already put your system in place, developed your strategy, and as such it can be difficult to make fundamental changes to your output. It's better to include customer input throughout the system design, from your initial strategy decisions about what products to make, how you should make them, to the delivery methods, to every part in the system design. In that way, you can have a better chance of meeting your customer expectations and delighting them with your goods and services. Also remember that your customer can be internal or external. External customers are the most obvious. They're the people that buy the things that you're selling. But your customers can also be internal. They can be one part of an organization producing some output for another part of the organization. And these internal customers are also important because without delighting your internal customer, ultimately your final product will not be able to delight your external customer. Now that you've seen an overview of the production operations management system for organization, the question is, how will you use your knowledge of systems to build better organizations? Organizations can seem to be without a plan, impossible to effectively understand. A systems perspective, however, can let you see an organization design and potential. The systems perspective is your foundation for organizational improvement. Your use of the system perspective can help you to build a better organization.